Hello, and welcome back to another installment of Virtual Family Saturday at the Bowdoin College Museum of Art. My name is Sabrina Lin. I'm the Curatorial Assistant and Manager of Student Programs here at the museum. While we wish you and your family could be here with us in person today, we hope to bring the museum to you through this virtual format. At the end of the video, I will introduce a small crafts activity that ties together what we're looking at today. Today we'll be exploring the exhibition There is a Woman in Every Color, Black Women in Art, curated by Elizabeth Humphrey and on view until January 30th, 2022. The exhibition examines the representation of Black women over the past 2 centuries and brings together over 60 works of art to challenge a lack of representation and to recenter the role of women of color in American art history. Throughout this video, we encourage you to pause the video and reflect upon any questions or discussion points with you and your family. I'm currently standing in the Halford Gallery, looking at the second portion of the exhibition, There is a Woman in Every Color. This gallery mainly showcases works by contemporary Black women artists. It prompts us to think about what art by Black women can look like, as well as showcasing the range of creative possibilities Black women artists have employed. From representational art, which means art that is recognizable for representing an aspect of reality, to abstraction, to conceptual art and performances. Today, I'll be discussing one work that belongs to the theme of influential literature. This theme showcases how artists respond to text and literature and how they use literary devices to explore their identity as artists and as Black women. The work I'll be speaking about today is this collage piece you see behind me by the American artist Lorraine. It's titled Cutting Out New York Times, 1977 and 2017. Lorraine O'Grady is an American conceptual artist born in Boston in 1934. You may be wondering, what is conceptual art? Conceptual art means that a work of art whose idea or concept is more important than the finished art object itself. For that reason, conceptual art can use a variety of mediums and can look like anything in order to express a given idea. In this example, we see the artist exploring the themes of language and literature. When she was a student, Lorraine O'Grady studied Spanish literature and creative writing at school. After graduation, she went on to work as an intelligence analyst for the US government, and then as a rock music critic for Rolling Stones, as well as a literary and commercial translator for herself. For those reasons, language has been a prominent theme in her art and in her conceptual practice. In addition, O'Grady was also a feminist artist who spoke out about the experiences of Black women and the underrepresentation, exclusion of Black women artists in the United States. These 2 themes are visible in this work here. O'Grady said that she began this work as a writer, but ended it more as a visual artist, combining both of her interests and her past practices. What we're looking at here is a work of collage, which was made from letterpress printing on Japanese art paper, which was then cut out and collaged on laid paper. This poem reads, "This could be the permanent rebellion that lasts a lifetime, calling a halt to the universe because life doesn't wait. The savage is loose where we are." Pause here. What does the poem remind you of, and what is O'Grady trying to say? This work was in fact a response to the original series of work that the artist carried out in 1977, which included 26 poems made out of newspaper clips she found in the Sunday Times. From June 5th to November 20th, 1977, O'Grady took the Sunday editions of the New York Times for inspiration to create a series of shaped poems that use headlines from the newspaper. The poems she would assemble became reflections of the cultural moment of that day, as headlines that captured the most pressing issues in New York in the late 70s and spoke to social and racial conditions of her time. In 2017, she recreated these poems into a new series of collage into 26 haiku diptychs. A haiku is a form of poetry that came from Japan, which consists of 3 lines. The piece here is part of that larger body of work and is an example of the larger series that explores themes of identity, rebellion, and philosophy. The first thing I would like us to focus on with this work is the interesting comparison in scale. The original series in 1977 reproduced these poems and these collages in 8.5 by 11 inches of scale, which is approximately the same size of a standard US letterpress paper. However, as you can see in the example behind me, these new editions are now much bigger. In fact, they measure 30 by 42 inches. Pause for a moment to think about how the difference in size changes our perception of the work. What would a collage this big remind you of? To me, this now larger version removes some of the intimate and craft-like quality of the original collage. Instead, the scale reminds me of billboards, of advertisements and slogans, or public service announcements you see in the subway or bus stops in New York. It reinforces O'Grady's use of the New York Times as evoking a form of public language. It creates a sense of contrast, as we tend to think of poems as intensely personal and intimate, expressing our innermost fears, dreams, and desires. Instead of looking into ourselves, now the poem has removed the easy identification of a known speaker or poet, making the meaning much more complicated and hard to decipher. Think for a moment here. Do you think the artist is talking about a sense of collective feeling? What is the rebellion she refers to? And who are the we invoked throughout the poem? Another thing I want to highlight here is the role of time. When O'Grady began recreating the series in 2017, she was already in her early 80s. After 4 decades, you begin to wonder how the meaning of words have or have not changed. You may find that the source material is just as compelling as it was 40 years ago, or there's also the possibility of words taking on new meanings. Looking at the poem today, you still feel like there's a strong sense of urgency and radicality. You can imagine these headlines being printed in the New York Times or in your local newspaper today. By revisiting this work 40 years later, O'Grady asks us to think about how language takes on new meaning while still being inextricably tied to the past. The last point I would like to focus on is the use of white space in this work. As we discussed earlier, this 2017 series is much larger in scale. When blown up in proportion, the white space becomes just as important as the text occupying its surface. The work appears like an open page or scribbles of thoughts in a journal, where the context is stripped away. It stands in sharp contrast to our perception of newspapers as giving information in plain facts and as given. It allows our eyes and minds to travel and perhaps being invited to fill in the blanks. As viewers, we must define meaning for ourselves. To me, what makes this work so ultimately powerful is the way it makes me think about different channels of communication, public and private, past and present, known and the unknown. I hope you'll take the work as an inspiration to think about the role of languages in your life. Now, I would like to show you a quick craft activity associated with the work we talked about today. Here's an example that I made. I took headlines from our student newspaper, the Bowdoin Orient, and I created a little haiku myself. It reads, "An open letter to mid-fall. On the steps, embracing the resistance and healing, moving through grief, let's try love." I hope you enjoyed the program today, and then you'll take this as inspiration to create your own version of a cutout collage poem. Take a piece of paper and any newspaper or magazines lying around in your house. Think about which words or phrases best represent how you feel on this day. Assemble your cutouts and create your own version of the poems. Thank you for tuning into our virtual Family Saturday today. I hope you enjoyed the program. On behalf of the Bowdoin College Museum of Art, we would like to extend our warmest wishes to you and your family for the upcoming holiday season. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you back in the museum very soon.